The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Wednesday, midweek edition. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice Rhody. And thanks to you for checking us out. Can find us on Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe to watch the show. Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Can find all of us on social media at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence for Elijah, and at Justice Rhody for Justice. 489-1240 to get in, 489-1240 to dial up, 800-825-5865. Can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. We'll be sure to get our starting five shout-outs going and get you some notification. Love the camaraderie, the communication, and maybe a bit of hazing slash, well, what's the right word? Challenges that happen between you in the stream. It's good that there's discourse. Mike Babcock going to be with us from Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports. We'll talk with Babbers about the Big Red and Wisconsin. Also get his thoughts on Nebraska-Creighton Friday. We'll check in with Charlie McBride. Coach McBride's blowing out birthday candles today, so we'll say happy birthday. We won't sing it because we don't want to hurt your ears. I mean, Elijah can sing. I don't know about Justice. And
not with this cold, I can't sing.
No. Well,
I could maybe do like one of those low country songs, you know? Like Lock the Door and Turn the Lights Down. I can maybe do that one.
Like the old Elvira.
Justice is from Oklahoma. He knows all these songs.
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
Hey, listen. I was listen. I was a two-time state soloist in Oklahoma.
You both sang.
We might have the best vocal duo of any radio show in the state.
Yeah, the duo. I do not find anything.
We're gonna start an a cappella band.
I don't even sing out loud in the car by myself.
No, a cappella band. Schmidt, you can do the percussion.
I'm gonna get me and Babbers. We're gonna sing some Grateful Dead. Right.
Live at the Single Barrel, the Hail Varsity Karaoke Show.
Well, the Hail Varsity Trio.
All those empty whiskey bottles will be thrown at us to shut us up. We are at the Single Barrel tomorrow, 4 to 6, getting your football weekend kicked off. Friday at Ameristar, Council Bluffs Casino ahead of Nebraska-Creighton. And also back at the Single Barrel, noon to 2, pregame and weekend edition of Hail Varsity. So note that down. I'm expecting to see the Snitley boys wander through for a little reenactment of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Not being asked to leave or turning the taps off, no, but just to hoist one. It's been a sprint of a college football season. Some thoughts on the latest playoff selection committee rankings. Not a lot of change for the Big Ten. Coach McBride, of course, Mike Babcock. Barry Alvarez with us, a longtime Badger man in hour two to get it kicked off. Evan Bland will also join us, and a little window right now to get in at 489-1240. So, Elijah, you put this tweet out yesterday about what you were doing, and you even put a picture up. And let's just be honest. All junior high pictures at that awkward stage in life should be burnt. Mm-hmm. There was a dare I say, husky Elijah Herbel. Yeah,
Husky
Herbel.
No, I was husky. Now, in my defense, I was on prednisone and I looked like a Shar-Pei, so I was all sorts of fat and happy, even into the junior high era. You had the old braces going.
Yeah. I had those braces on for way too long.
Did you really?
I didn't get those things off till sophomore year of high school.
Was it longer than Nebraska's streak against Wisconsin?
No.
Oh, okay.
That were 12 years. I got those braces on just before that picture, and I didn't get them off till sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
See, some people call those the wonder years. I think most call them the blunder years.
Yeah, they were blunder, where your ears and your feet are 7 times too big compared to the rest of your body. Anywho, what were you doing in 2012? How different was your life in 2012? We ask that because that's the last time Nebraska beat Wisconsin. I remember being in the press box watching the ugly uniform game. I think Abernathy was the one whiteout Nebraska had to worry about with Wisconsin. They had him double covered, and Wisconsin didn't care. Wisconsin went down the field throwing jump ball after jump ball to old number 84, and Nebraska got down big. This was kind of your second act, your sequel to the Ohio State comeback, because Nebraska got in a whole lot of trouble. Now, Nebraska was able to stop Monte Ball on fourth down, force a fumble, and secure the victory. But it was a whale of a comeback for Nebraska football. It kind of reminded us all of the Ohio State game from the previous year. But Nebraska's defense stepped up. They got some momentum. Wisconsin, because 2012 was kind of a weird year, Wisconsin ended up in the Big Ten championship game because Ohio State was ineligible. That was year one of Urban.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was Tattoo Gate's punishment. Penn State was ineligible, I think.
Still because of Sandusky.
Yeah, still because of old Jerry. And so you had a Penn State team that went in and beat Wisconsin the week before. You had a 7-5.
Yeah, I remember
7-5 Wisconsin team in the Big Ten title game, and then it was
every Husker fan
sweep reverse.
Every Husker fan was okay. Cakewalk to the first conference championship game since '99.
Let's pay it off, right? Let's pay it off. Three out of the last 4 years, you're in a championship game. You almost get one against Oklahoma. You almost get one against Texas. Then in year two in the Big Ten, it's right there for you. And I think Justin Jackson got hurt in the middle for Nebraska. And Nebraska, I think, thought they were going to try and go between the tackles. And Wisconsin went wide, and kept going wide. And 71-31, and then Bielema goes and gets paid by Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just bad. So there's a reenactment of 2012. It was a different year with me. Junior was kind of in and out of Nebraska fandom, and I'm sure my wife was still ticked off at me. That's kind of my answer. What was different in my life? Really nothing. Junior's in and out of Nebraska fandom, and my wife's still ticked off at me.
I was in 7th grade band class. Nothing too particularly interesting about my life, like the life of a middle schooler. Nothing that great. We were
any in-school suspensions?
No, none that year. My Union Bank A team in 7th grade, 2-year A team player Elijah Herbel. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Hold your applause. We did finish we were runner-ups to Union Bank that 7th grade year.
Football?
Sorry, that club that year in football. Yeah, midget football, now Lincoln Youth Football.
It's youth football.
Now. But in the time it was midget football, so I can still say midget football from back then. We were runner-ups. We ran the table in the regular season, lost in the championship game. That one still looms large in my memory. We ran it back in 8th grade. Starting quarterback Patrick Pliny got us the championship in 8th grade, so that was nice to have after the blunder that was that 7th grade championship game. But that was my life. Nothing too exciting.
Well, who's on the horn?
We have Steve waiting on the horn.
Steve, what's up? Thanks for calling.
Thank you, Chris. This is Steve from Lincoln calling. How are you guys today?
Good, man. What do you know?
Well, it's the question. I want to know what you guys know. I want a live on the air radio prediction from you, Chris. Wisconsin, Nebraska here in Lincoln Saturday. What say you the final score, sir?
That happens Friday, Steve-O, with Claus burning the Friday forecast.
We're going to make you wait.
Yeah, we're going to make you wait.
It's appointment radio on Friday at 5:40.
We'll do our prediction on Friday at 5:40. But I'm feeling okay. I'll just lean that way.
That's cool. I always try to tune into that show. It's an outstanding show with you guys as well as Clausborn, and I anxiously will tune in tomorrow to hear the all-important predictions from you great guys.
Steve, appreciate the call, bud. You take care. Steve is not a paid radio caller, but he should be.
Steve, you still with us?
Yes, sir.
Steve, what were you up to back in 2012, the last time Nebraska got a win against Wisconsin?
Oh, golly, I don't know, but I'm sure I was cheering for the team. But I gotta tell you, I love listening to your show on Fridays especially, and you guys do a great quality production. And thank you for all your hard work.
Right, Steve, good to spend time, bud. Appreciate you. Thanks
Check's in the
much.
mail.
Yep, check is in the mail, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
There you go. That's pretty good. Good to hear from Steve. 489-1240. The Real Matthew says, I was going to school fresh out of the Army in 2012. Thank you for your service, Real Matthew.
Eat Beef was having a tough time with women, apparently.
Okay, something like that. 2012 was the worst drought in my life. Man, Roger is checked in the stream as he is there along with Real Matthew as we get our starting five shout-outs going. Arlo is in. Uncle Larry doesn't miss a show. Appreciate him. Says, I hope the wind doesn't blow like this on Saturday. Uncle Larry, me either, as there's a red flag warning in Lincoln where we're out of. Jeff Snitley is here, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Justin is in. Mudflaps is here. Mike from Cali says, feeling a Husker win on Saturday. NASCAR Eric is in. Good to have him. Grateful Red is here. I'm sending out all the good juju I can. From Colorado, this sixth win is what he's predicting. Brent is here after watching Coach Fickle's presser. Feeling good about going 1-0 on Saturday. Good to have Great Red Shark in. Anything horrible happened to NU football over the last 24 hours? I don't believe it. Brian Snitley checks in, again, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Was at the game witnessing the worst collection of alternate uniforms on the field at the same time. It was the Avoid the Noid, if you remember the old Pizza Hut commercial. That's the Nebraska unis. Searles showed us his cleats, which were the favorite part of the uniform when we talked to him yesterday. And then Wisconsin had that. I mean, it was just brutal. It was just absolutely horrible.
One thing I will say is I liked the black helmets Nebraska wore that game.
Those were kind
black
of
helmets
cool.
with the red. The problem was I still refer to that game as the Scrabble game. Mm-hmm. The big N across the chest, the big W across the chest. That was Adidas at their worst.
Yeah, and they...
and I like Adidas.
I love Adidas, too.
No lawsuits or anything coming my way, Adidas, but that was a mistake.
No, they have not gone back there. Justin Oldboot is in. Black Hills Brennan is here. He says, I'm here to whoop, bleep, and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum. Dana Holgorsen, probably. That might have been Dana 5 minutes in. Shane is here, checking in from Santa Cruz. JB is my dad is here. We've heard from Eat Beef. Talk says, I think Dana's impact gets made this week. Tuck, I think you might be on to something. Walter from Philly, south of Philly, is in. Big Butter Jesus Gaiman says, afternoon, Husker fans. And he says, I wouldn't be shocked to see if HH and Gabe Irvin get in. A nod to the old Domino's, Chris. Yeah, I just remember those commercials. That was early 80s where the Noid would scream pizza. So Justin's asking the question, why would HH transfer? You know, you're getting into that time of year where phone calls are made. Outreach is happening. Did we say poaching/tampering? I don't know what the 105 will look like here by spring, but it's sad. And we heard Matt Rule talk about that. Just the fact you're going to have to roster cut because they're professionalizing this thing, and what makes teams like Georgia, like Alabama, like I won't say Ohio State, but I'll say Oregon. I mean, they develop and they recruit at a high level, and you get both of those factors happening if you really do get a chance to go hit and practice and tackle in practice and simulate game time, then you're going to be a better football team. And you saw it with Nebraska when they went heavy and they tackled to get ready for Rutgers. Not that they don't tackle now, but you know how much extra work that Coach Rule and Tony White talked about that they put in. And you need bodies to do it. And you go from 140 to 105. That hurts Nebraska. That will hurt Nebraska, potentially. And it'll hurt everybody else. I mean, I don't want this thing turning into flag football.
Mm-hmm. But yes, the question to start, I mean, it's something we're asking a lot of people because of roster limits coming. It's been the topic of the week this week. Why would HH transfer, Heinrich Haarberg?
Because he can play?
Well, think about his utilization this year. That's something we talked about preseason and a lot this year. Man, the possibilities of Heinrich Haarberg coming onto the field. It's why you bring in Jalen Gramstad, having the insurance so you can use Heinrich Haarberg on the field as a football player instead of as a backup quarterback. Have you seen that? Ask yourself the question. Have you seen that? Does Heinrich Haarberg provide more value at Nebraska, or does he provide more value somewhere else? It's a question Heinrich Haarberg is going to have to ask himself.
Well, it is. And listen, I want to see more situational use if it's there, if it's working. And it worked briefly, just 2 snippets of carries, right? It's a nice changeup. You've seen Penn State go to it, and that's what got him back in and won in the USC game. Their tight end, not only the 213 he put up catching the football, but he helped them eke out a win on the road at Wisconsin out of the not the Wildcat, whatever the hell Penn State calls it, but it's okay to go away from your pass first quarterback and go zone read Wildcat. You can go with your fastball, but if you got a good curve or changeup, that's big, and have that option. Screw with the defense. We'll get Mike Babcock's take on the impact and importance of Saturday. We'll get Babber's take on 2012. This maddening streak against Bucky. And Coach McBride, Barry Alvarez also on the way. Good to be with you on a Wednesday. It's Hail Varsity. You can subscribe, Hail Varsity YouTube channel.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Wednesday edition. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice Rhody, Mr. Husker Football, Mike Babcock with us at MD Babs on Twitter. You read him with Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports. Babbers, it's Wisconsin week, man. You fired up? How are you doing?
Wisconsin week, am I fired up?
That tone says it all. It says...
I'll agree with the first part. It is Wisconsin week.
No, wow.
I'll agree with that. Am I fired up? No.
No?
I'm not. No, but let me say this first. I thought Justice did a really good job. Watched BTN Plus last night.
Oh, good.
On the women's basketball game.
Okay.
Excellent job.
Much appreciated, Mike.
That sort of fired me up, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, Schmidt's out here. He's collecting the infinity stones of people to replace me with better radio voices. He went from Connor to Justice and all these guys.
Wow. But thankfully, Elijah started smoking in L.A., so the tone is more intimidating, and I will back away.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm not fired up, but interested to see what happens, definitely. Nebraska has to step up and get bowl eligibility this week and go into the Iowa game with the potential to win 2 games in a row. But Nebraska has to win this game. There's no
discussion. There's no moral victory. There's no, well, maybe next time. Well, no, you're going on. Right. You're going on 2 years with the new guy. Or newer guy, you're going on back to 2019 of this squeeze that's been November, and it's got to flip, and I think it can. You heard from Dana Holgorsen, we heard from Dana Holgorsen, and you got kind of a straight shooting, no nonsense. You're going to get dirty, you're going to get uncomfortable, and you're going to do your job, or you're not going to have a job. That's the vibe I got yesterday, and I think it's welcomed on the offensive side of the ball, Mike.
Yeah, somebody yesterday on your show used the word blunt. I thought that was a good description of how Holgorsen came across. I was a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, about how he came across. Because that's not what we've seen from any of the coaches when we've had access to them. Yeah, he was certainly blunt about some things, and assistant coaches as well as players. So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that happens behind the scenes. Maybe we don't know. But he certainly came in and gave the impression that he's holding people accountable, hopefully himself as well.
Well, the $1 million question with that accountability, Mike, is with only 2 games left on the schedule, how much can that change?
I think it can change to some degree because, you know, if you're a player, you want to be on the field. You want to have an opportunity to play. And if you got a coach coming in and saying, you know, that assistant coaches get a special connection with certain players and don't give others a chance kind of a mentality, I think you step up, you give it your best effort. You know, I don't know how accurate that is. That if this staff has been overlooking lots of players, because I don't get that impression because of the number of players that rotate in there. I think there's opportunity, and I think that they've shown that. You know, James Williams is an example of that. A guy was on the scout squad, and he's shown what he can do, and he's gotten on the field because of that. So I don't know how far that goes, but, you know, it's maybe just a reminder when he comes in here and says something like that, that if you don't get the job done, as he did to the receivers, I guess, you know, if you don't block on the perimeter, you're not going to be out there.
Mike Babcock's with us from Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports at MD Babs on Twitter. You're absolutely right about the James Williams example. You're right about the personnel shuffling, but you just couldn't find any certainty or go to a lot of this season, could you, Mike? They were felt like they were always searching or they were uncertain about what they wanted to do or the direction they wanted to go on offense. And Rule touched on it, trying to do a little bit of everything versus being good at something. So, you know, I think Dana will narrow it down. I'm anxious to see continued perimeter blocking. I'm anxious to see the running backs continue to look more like that first drive of the second half. Find the hole, hit the hole, because I think Dana's a guy, despite the air raid rep, he's first and foremost about toughness, and I think they can find some daylight running the ball. I think he may stick with it.
Yeah, well, I got to say my weekly thing, you know, you got to run the ball. You got to establish some kind of a running game, consistency with the running game. And if you can do that, and if you've got an offensive line, you know, the observation that was the best that the offensive line has played this season. If they're opening some holes and you've got receivers now that are blocking on the perimeter, that all says positive things for the potential for a running game. And you want to see that, again, to take pressure off your quarterback if you want to throw the ball.
Mike, what are your thoughts? 25 attempts, 119 yards, 4.8 yards per carry for Nebraska against USC. Just those numbers on its face. I know numbers don't always tell the full story, but what do those numbers say to you about Nebraska's rushing attack and Dana Holgorsen's willingness to run the ball?
You got to be able to do better than what you did. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got to show, and you've got to commit to it more than that number of carries. You've got to have enough confidence in your offensive line and your running backs, and again, the receivers blocking on the perimeter to get the job done, to get a running game going. And if you can do that, because you got to run, it's become a cliche, but I think that it's legitimate, as most cliches are, I guess. You got to be able to run the ball in the Big Ten. You got to have that capability, and then you can build off that. And that's what I want to see Nebraska do. I think Nebraska's capable of doing that. Let's see if they can get it done.
Mike Babcock with us here, and Captain chimed into the stream. Wisconsin will run for 500 yards. That better not be the case. Memorial Stadium will revolt. Two certainties. It's tough to watch. Teams run the ball down your throat. It's tough to watch. The officials are on notice. This one last rodeo for 2024. Mike, want to switch gears and talk about Nebraska-Creighton basketball. That's the big one Friday. Kind of stinks it's so early in the season, and it's nestled in on a Friday night right before a football game and a volleyball matchup with Nebraska-Wisconsin, but it is what it is. Pretty huge ball game this early for Nebraska basketball, and I'm a little out on just the offense and the turnovers right now. Now, I think they can get better, but they've got a really early window of opportunity for some impressions to be made when it comes to resume time near March.
I agree with you, Chris, and I'm not talking about football now. I'm talking about the basketball game. Take care of the ball. Don't turn it over to the degree that you have, and focus on how you do your offense, how you play the offense. It is a big challenge, I think, for the Huskers, and I'm interested to see how they'll respond coming off the tough loss. But also, you learn from that. You just take a look at what happened in that game and see where you need to improve, where you need to get better, where you need to do things that you didn't do in that game. And it begins with taking care of the ball.
Mike, I want to flip things over to the Nebraska defensive side of the basketball affairs. When you look at how Creighton stacks up with Ryan Kalkbrenner in the middle, obviously that's a projected Big East Player of the Year, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East. There is going to be really heliocentric in there, right? And Nebraska struggled guarding the perimeter threats, and Kalk's a really good kick-out passer. How do you think Nebraska's defense is going to shape up against a really good perimeter shooting Creighton team with, that monster patrol in the middle and Kalk?
You just got to hustle and be aggressive as you can be without constantly fouling. But that Kalkbrenner, and that's how you deal with that is going to, I'm not sure exactly how you do that, but you have to be aggressive and not just accept the fact that, he's the player that you say he is. You got to go out there and just do what you do. And try to be aggressive without fouling all the time.
Mike, let's look at the weekend as a whole. Do you like Nebraska basketball's chances against Creighton more? Or do you like Nebraska football's chances more against Wisconsin? It's a real question.
This is easy. They're both 3.5-point lines. and on one hand, I'm going, how the heck is that possible? How's it only 3.5, Babbers, for basketball? And I totally get the 3.5 where it's a pick 'em, but okay, you're playing at home. Let's give you the nod.
You don't want to throw volleyball in there too, or
well, I got a pretty good feeling about volleyball. Yeah, personally,
I don't know.
That team's rolling.
They are. They'll get challenged pretty hard though.
They will, but they're rolling.
So,
after they take care of Iowa tonight,
we are overlooking
so basketball or football. Which one do I think has a better chance?
Next.
Ask me on Sunday, and then you'll know, and I'll know.
The take for the weekend is at least the Broncos are playing. I haven't said that in a while.
Ever.
Yeah.
Babber's going to plead the fifth on this one.
Too. I'm going to say football.
Okay.
I'm going to say football has the better chance because I'm looking for something for that football team to step up as it did after the Ohio State, or after it did after the big loss to Indiana, and it came back and really put it all on the field.
So the real Matthew wants to know why we never ask questions at press conferences. Nothing's come to mind. To be honest, I mean, I'm better in one-on-one situations. We'll stage
I know
right.
pretty much anything that I would ask, somebody's going to ask. So
that's fair. I'm going to go with that answer, Babbers.
I don't want to get in the way of people who are smarter than I am to ask questions.
Yeah, that's the best answer I got for you, Matthew. Babbers, we'll see you for another finale, Big Cat.
Okay,
on Saturday. Appreciate you. There he is, Mike Babcock, Mr. Husker Football. The birthday with Uncle Charlie next.
This is Christian Peter. I'm sorry, but the stories I have about Charlie are not appropriate for the public.
The right case of the Mondays. it's Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, on Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity, and I don't want to hurt his ears, but we should sing happy birthday to Coach McBride. He's, 65 again, Coach? Happy birthday.
And thank you. I appreciate that very much.
65 again.
I don't know. Yeah, well, it sounds more. It sounds like 85.
Yeah, well, better with age, right?
Yeah, that's the way it goes. Just keep hoping that 86 comes and then 87. You know how that goes. I don't know why they want a little while longer. I just soon have it go now. That's what I had a bunch of friends. One lady called me. She was just 100, and she fell and broke her hip. She said, I'm not going through therapy. So she went home, and she was with her son. And she didn't eat for 3 days or drink water, and that was it.
Well, Coach, on the flip side of that.
The brighter side.
On the brighter side, I mean, I don't think you can go until the Huskers make a bowl game, right?
What?
I mean, the Huskers, they're one win away. You got to at least see a bowl win or a bowl appearance before you can go, right?
They're going to win 2 games.
See, Coach is saying it's going to be two into the bowl game.
Yeah, see, if you win 2 games, then you go up a class in the bowl games.
Is there any bowl game? I mean? Yeah, is there any bowl game you hated?
You maybe make more money for the school.
Yeah. Was there a bowl destination you didn't like?
I didn't like?
You didn't like. I mean, I'm saying El Paso, Blue Bonnet, Miami.
Well, the only thing that happened with Orange Bowl is we went so many times, I think, that, after a while, your fans even they want to go the same place every year.
Right.
And that was a bad thing about it. And we got a chance to go to the Cotton Bowl, which was in Dallas, and Sugar Bowl, in New Orleans, and things like that. And so it was, the most fun bowl was the Liberty Bowl. That's one of the first ones I went to. Mm-hmm. And it was, it was kind of small town. It was El Paso, and El Paso wasn't half of what it is now today. But the people were terrific, and that's part of the deal. It's your host. If you don't see them and don't talk to them it's nothing. The bowl, they make it, and. And so they take the kids' places and they take the girls' places and stuff like that. So, it's always good. The only thing down there wasn't a beach. Yeah. The guys always like that, or like a lot of the kids like to go fishing and things like that.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, Nebraska has a chance against Wisconsin. Both programs well. You coached at Wisconsin. You spent a lot of time in Lincoln, and both teams are kind of mirror images of one another statistically, and Wisconsin made their change on offense. What do you think's important on Saturday?
Well, I think, the changes that they made are kind of limited now because they've had a couple injuries at quarterback, and again, that's probably like getting a new, offensive coordinator a little bit, but, that they don't recruit bad kids. And at the beginning of the year, if you remember what Coach Rio said, he said, we have 3 guys that can win. Mm-hmm. So, if that's the case, they'll have a good quarterback, and the kids will play hard for him. So that's what I expect. They got good fans. At least they did when I was there. They were a little different then. They were 0-28 when we came. And we won 4 games the first year. And I thought we were going to the Super Bowl. And it was, if we had intercepted that pass, we could have won that game. You know, that, it was if we did this, we'd have won. And then now, it's a little different. now it's fire the coach, and then, it gets it all straightened out.
Charlie McBride's with us. Coach, you've got Dylan Raiola that's trying to find his groove and probably playing through some bumps and bruises like a lot of folks this time of year, facing some criticism and adversity for the first time. And that can be tough on young guys, can it? But it's important for them to pull through.
Well, it hurts the players, too.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing. I mean, if people want to, be that way, that's some of it's understandable. I mean, it's common, just like, it's black and white and everybody knows it. But when you start getting into personal things or you get into things that they really don't know about, in other words, you get into plays, you get into all this substitution, you don't know who's hurt, who's not. And you don't know all the answers. And I've had all different kinds of people get on me. We could win. You can win. I'm telling you now. And I got as much guff as anybody. And so they tried to fire me for 15, 20 years before. One time we had a guy that didn't have a job, right? But he had a ton of money. Mm. And he had belonged to 3 country clubs, and he had 3 petitions going to see me get fired. Then we won the national championship, and he thought I was the greatest thing that ever walked.
Did you ever bump into him?
Oh, no, I don't want to. He was a regent, too, at one time. He just never worked. He had so much money. He just belonged to country clubs and stuff.
Is Coach McBride. Hang on, Coach. We'll try and reconnect with you here and wrap it up. But Coach celebrating a birthday. We missed him Monday. We get a couple more thoughts here. Barry Alvarez on the way here in hour 2 with Hail Varsity. And Evan Bland also going to join us. So plenty going on here. We'll I want to jump into this. Is it going to be an arm wrestling match with Ray Lewis versus Scott Frost for Florida Atlantic? Those are 2 of the leading names.
That's a hell of a pair of names.
Right, it is. Do you go the Dion route with Ray, or do you dust off old Frosty? He's won well in Florida.
Just keep Ray away from the nightclubs down there.
Yeah. See, I knew you were going to go there. Yeah. Dan Dockage quote tweeted, "This would be a killer hire." So that was not very nice,
but pretty funny.
Yeah, that would be quite funny. But we'll reconnect with Coach, get a thought on Wisconsin, and get you into hour 2. Great to be with you. Lots of you having a good chat in the stream. We invite you to check out the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. More with Coach McBride. We'll reconnect here with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
It's Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Coach, as you look at this Wisconsin matchup on Saturday, obviously Nebraska, they're on a losing streak. You didn't go through many of those in your Husker career, but what do you do from a coaching staff point of view, trying to rein this team back in, understanding they're only 1 game away from a bowl game? How would you go about I guess, busting the losing streak and getting back into your winning ways?
Well, the one thing we got to understand is they're going to not lose much on defense. They're a good defensive team, and it's going to be right now. It's going to be a low-scoring game. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the teams could explode. I mean, that can happen any time. And I think that that right now, when you're looking at it, you're looking at them being a little bit injured in the way that when they have a quarterback and that's not the first team or second team player. Although I think he can, sure throw the ball. I'm sure he can. And he may be better than the first two. You never know. But just never gotten the opportunity yet. Now he'll get it. But as a rule, I think they're going to depend. They're going to really pump it in their defense. And that'll be a really, a test for us.
Well,
but that's the best way to go, though. Get get the best they got.
Well, going to come down to running the ball and stopping the run, and Nebraska trying to bounce back after a tough day against USC, stopping the run. So it'll be key. A lot of kids came back. Coach McBride, Ty Robinson, and his crew go out one more time. And just a final thought from you on this senior class, what they're trying to do.
Well, I feel bad for them. I mean, and all the hard work they put in, they did, and all of those guys. I mean, it as well as I do that. There's some special kids there, and they've tried to do. They deserve it. They deserve to win, and it's just one of those things that you hope that it happens to them because. You'd hate to see somebody that maybe could have gone to Notre Dame or gone out to a school that's winning or gone anywhere if they wanted to and came to our place. And probably those kids are probably the most loyal kids that you'll ever find. I mean, they were going to stick through us to try to come thick or thin, and they did. And they're still going to fight.
Well, going to be a good one on Saturday. Charlie McBride with us. Coach, have some birthday cake, and we'll holler at you next week.
Okay. I'll have one piece of birthday cake.
You have as many pieces as you want.
and one drink of birthday cake.
Coach, you take care.
Okay, guys. I'll see you. Bye now.
All right. We love Coach. Happy birthday, Coach McBride. And, I'll have one drink of whatever. So, saw this tweet earlier. So, Wisconsin doesn't have a play caller. It's a collaboration. Doesn't have that play caller. It's a backup quarterback. Lost their starting running back to the portal 3 games into the year. They're playing on the road. Doesn't that scream you're telling me there's a chance to get 6?
To be fair, that doesn't tell the full story of Wisconsin this year.
No.
Because Wisconsin is a team that has settled into what they are a little bit better as the year's gone on.
They fought like hell, and we'll see where Wohlers is at. He got dinged against Oregon. Barry Alvarez kicks off Hour 2 with Hail Varsity.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We say hi to College Football Hall of Famer, Athletic Director Emeritus at Wisconsin, and Hall of Famer with the Big Red, a All-Big 8 selection. Barry Alvarez back with us. It's Wisconsin-Nebraska week. Coach, how we doing? How's the fall been for you?
Everything's fine. I'm down here in my place down in Florida, and no complaints. Everything's going just fine.
Want to get into the matchup this week, Coach Alvarez, and as you look at the Wisconsin squad, I'll get your take on Nebraska here in a moment, but what's your state of concern right now? They're switching play caller. It's been a really up and down season and almost against a really great Oregon team, but how are you feeling from afar?
Well, there's just a lack of consistency. We've shown at times that we're very capable, and I think you mentioned the Oregon game, to go in there, and no one's even been able to stay on the field with them. And, we've got a chance. We should win that game. We've got a touchdown called back on a phantom chop block, and got interference on us in the end zone that isn't called, but still really played well. Yet there are times when we've given away leads in the fourth quarter and lost games that we should have won. So there's inconsistencies, there's mistakes, and we seem to beat ourselves. But we certainly are capable. I see the same thing with Nebraska. Nebraska's very much like us. I think you have 2 very similar teams going at it.
It's Barry Alvarez with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. And, Coach, yeah, you mentioned the fact that there's been games for Wisconsin this year where it's a one-score loss. The fans feel like you should win it. That sounds a hell of a lot like the past 5 years for Nebraska. In your eyes, what are some of the keys to being able to get over the hump in those close football games, to turn a one-score loss into a one-score victory? We've been talking about this ad nauseum here in Nebraska for the past couple of years. What are your thoughts?
You know what? I had a year like that. I started it that spring. I would end practice, and I would put us in positions to either win or lose a game. Good against good. I wanted my guys to compete and to learn how to compete and learn how to make plays in crunch time. You know, if you did it, you were rewarded. If you didn't, you'd have to run or you had to do something. You know, so I try to simulate competition because the only way you can learn is doing it. The best way is to win at crunch time. But, you know, how do you get over that hump? How do you put confidence in 11 guys on the field? Because if there's only one out there that has doubt, they're going to find that guy. That guy's the one that's going to pop up and make the mistake. So there are things you could do. It's difficult. One of these two teams is going to find that this weekend.
Barry Alvarez with us, Hail Varsity Radio. A few minutes, Matt Rule talks about that breakthrough. And, Coach, you illustrated the simulation to take to Saturdays, those clutch moments. From a player to a coach, on top of that moment in practice, how did you kind of reiterate guys to play loose, to be confident? I'm sure it's the training. It just hasn't shown up for Nebraska. I mean, you're well aware, I'm sure, with the number of one-score losses they've had that spans back to 2019. It's just in their heads, it seems like, and you've got a mix of veterans, 6-year guys that haven't tasted winning, and you've got a group of young guys that are trying to help out as well, but their experience level, despite it being, game 11, isn't what some of those older guys are. So how do you mesh all of it together?
That's why they call you coach. That's a coach's job. That's a coach's job to get them over the hump, to build a confidence and to give them confidence. And you have to do it during practice. You have to build situations in practice, and you do it and do it and do it until you do it consistently, do things well consistently, and then you build a confidence in that when that crunch time comes in the game, that you can get it done, and you will get it done. And the guys on the field can feel it, and things happen. Everybody goes through that, and it's not easy. But, that's a coach's job to get it over the hump.
It's Barry Alvarez with us here. And, Coach, as we look specifically at Saturday, both of these teams, you kind of laid it out earlier, made offensive coordinator changes. We saw game 1 with Dana Holgorsen on Saturday against USC. Phil Longo out the door on Sunday, and it's going to be Wisconsin with the new offensive coordinator as well. I want to get your thoughts on making that change in season, especially now. Everything's condensed postseason with signing day that first week of December. You got the transfer portal that opens right after the season as well. I understand why people are making changes. I just want to get your reaction to now so many teams making coordinator and coaching changes at this point in the season.
Yeah, that's new to me too. I really haven't put a whole lot of thought into it because it doesn't affect me anymore. So, I always wonder, what are you accomplishing with 2 games left? Can you get any better? I mean, it's important. These 2 games are important to both teams. It's a bowl. 1 win is a bowl game, and 2 wins is a much better bowl game. So these are really important games and momentum going into next year. So if it is that crucial that a change that person is that detrimental to your team, then you got to make that move. But that's a head coach's job. That's his responsibility, and to recognize what's the best for the team and the future of the team.
Barry Alvarez with us here. A few minutes. It's Hail Varsity. It's Wisconsin. It's Nebraska. Coach, you coming up for the game, or are you staying sunny?
No, I'm not traveling as much anymore.
Yeah,
I was originally planning on being there. We have 5 of us that go to the Nebraska game every year, and then from there take a trip. But a couple can't make it, and that's a long trip for me from down here in Florida. So I'm not going to make it up there. I have to watch it on TV.
Coach, when you built your program, we've talked for a lot of years, and you were always so keen on not only the camps, but the athletes you had in your home state, and you years and years and years would focus in on the offensive and defensive line. That's how you built the program. That's what you had a number of kids to recruit to. What are your thoughts here on style of offense that's portable in this new Big Ten? The pro style smash mouth still wins. You have you still have some new members that they're a little more high flying. Is there a happy medium? What would you run, or would you run anything different if you were still in it?
If I were still in it, I would do what I felt I could recruit to consistently, and that wouldn't change. I would know that I could get big linemen and train them and should have a good line every year and physical line. And always know that if I've got a good line, I should have a good running game and then build it from there. Try to get a quarterback, that can throw it around to but a quarterback that was a combination runner and thrower. That's where I'd start. And, defensively, defense is defense. You've got to be sound. You've got to get good athletes, be sound over there, and be physical. But I wouldn't change my plan if I were going in there today. I'd do the same thing. And I'd see that the people in our league that are winning are doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Donnie Raiola, of course, played for you, coaching Nebraska's offensive line. Dom was here in Lincoln, of course, and Dylan, as a freshman, has had some good moments. He's had a tough stretch as the schedule's gotten a little bit thicker. Have you had much time to keep an eye on Nebraska's freshman quarterback?
Yeah, I've tried to watch him because I obviously I know the Raiola family and Donovan playing for me, and I knew Dom. I really know the parents very well and respect that family. So I try to keep an eye on him. Very impressed with his maturity and how he carries himself as a true freshman, being thrown into the fire like he has been, and so much put on his shoulders and so much responsibility put on him. But I really think that he has handled extremely well. I think his future is very bright. I think you have yourself a good one there.
Well, let me ask the question to you. If you put on your old defensive coordinator hat, I know you're a defensive guy, what would you do to try to confuse the freshman quarterback if you were on the sidelines on Saturday? What would your game plan be against him?
Well, your game plan has to start by stopping the run, but you want to know if he has an answer to the blitz question. If you're going to blitz him, does he have an answer? Does he have a quick answer? I did that with almost all quarterbacks. I always ask my guys, what's his answer to the blitz question going to be?
How much did you blitz Russell during practice?
It didn't make any difference what you did with Russell. It was balls coming out.
So he had an answer, is what you're saying, or he just tuck and run for about 40?
He had the answer, one way or the other.
Coach, you spent a lot of years on the college football playoff committee. You've been in those conference rooms, those war rooms, deciding. It's expanded to 12 now. And what's your view on this year's Big Ten? You've got a number of Big Ten teams that are at that 5-5 or 6 mark. Michigan's kind of in the middle of the pack. You're defending national champs, sitting there as well, right around 500. Do you look at the league as stronger and more stout, or do you look at it as, well, wow, there's a lot of several lost teams? I ask this because you're going to get that arm wrestling match continually between the SEC and the Big Ten about who gets the more teams in.
I think our league is really strong and deep. I think we have a lot of good football teams in our league, hence a number of losses with a number of teams. I think we'll get several teams from the league in, and deservedly so. We really have some good football teams, and I think it's a deep league.
Your thought, if it comes down, push comes to shove, dare I say a 2 or even a 3-loss brand name, and that can be Bama, it can be Tennessee, go down the SEC list over maybe a 1-loss Indiana team. Do that math problem for me, hypothetically, if you were still in the war room.
Well, I think a one-loss team with a good schedule.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the rest of the schedule, and who did they lose to? If you have one of the so-called named teams who've been there every year, all of a sudden they have 3 losses. Who are their wins? Do they have any good wins? Mm-hmm. And who are their losses? And then some of the teams with 1 loss, 2 losses. What kind of schedule have they played, and who has beaten them?
What do you think of on-site opening round playoff games?
I like that. I really like that. I like having a benefit for a good season, mm-hmm. being rewarded for a good season, and rewarding your fans.
Let's look at the crop of teams that's currently in that echelon, the teams that are likely candidates for the playoff. Where would you not want to go?
To the best team out there.
Good answer.
But, I mean, you could have, Coach, Notre Dame hosting Bama. I mean, as an opening round. I mean, that's pretty juicy. Yeah. You spent some time in South Bend, of course, and Irish are playing good ball as well. And last thought before we get you out, what do you think of Colorado's flip?
Well, I think Deion's done a tremendous job. You know, first of all, getting the attention that he's gotten there. Just the fact that he's brought attention to college football attention to Boulder, where they were dead in the water. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they have improved so much since he got there. I've really been impressed with the job that he's done, and he'll continue to really recruit well. Because he can go into a living room, he can sell parents, he can sell the next step for them, and he's shown that he can do that. So I think he's done a really nice job, and I think they've got a very bright future.
Barry Alvarez with his coach. There's some smoke about Deion and Dallas. Did you ever turn down any NFL options?
I did. I turned down a couple NFL options. I had no desire to coach in the NFL. It got to the point, I finally asked, and it was like 3 years in a row, from 95 on. Mm. And I finally said, why do you guys keep messing with me? I've already told you, I'm not interested in coaching in the NFL. And they gave me the reasons that they felt I'd be a good fit for the NFL. I said, well, guys, you can stop coming because I'm just not going to the NFL.
Who was it, and why didn't you want to go?
Well, there were several, but the first one was the Eagles.
Okay.
I used to tell people I didn't like coaching, but it made more money than I did. That was one. Uh-huh. But I like college football. Mm. I know college football. I'm comfortable with college football. I just never had a desire. And there are a lot of guys in our business, a lot of my friends, that was their goal. Some of my staff, they were dying that I would say. Some of them went on and became head coach. Billy Callahan, who was your head coach for a while, was with me. He wanted to be a head coach when he was a head coach in the NFL for a while. Same thing with Brad Childress. They wanted to be in the league and be head coaches, and they had that opportunity. But it just didn't motivate me.
Mm.
You don't need to tell Nebraskans. There's something special about college football. We all know it. You know it, obviously, too. It's just different.
Yeah. Coach, enjoy your time in Florida. Always love spending some time talking Nebraska, Wisconsin. I know you'll be watching, and best to you, and thanks again.
Okay, always good to talk to you guys.
Good to spend time with Barry Alvarez, Husker, all Big 8 performer for Bob Devetti. Of course, built Wisconsin, ran Wisconsin, and is putting for dough down in Florida. Going to miss him at the Single Barrel. He'd always roll in there, man. But good to spend time with Coach Alvarez. Evan Bland with us here on Hail Varsity next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Justice Rhody. Big thanks to Barry Alvarez getting hour 2 kicked off. And we say hi to Evan Bland, Omaha World Herald, at Evan Bland on Twitter, at Evan Bland OWH on Twitter. You hear him with the Pick Six Pod, him and Sam McEwen, and, of course, Tom Chattel. Evan, big week, man. How you doing? Do we have him?
Let's redial him.
He's on the line.
Evan Bland. Do we have you, Big Cat?
I heard him talking during the break, so that's
I had him during the break.
Let's try redialing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try redialing this.
Evan put the phone down and just walked away.
He heard your voice and went, oh, no. I thought I was talking to Justice today.
This goon is calling me. 489-1240, numbers to get in. Here on Hail Varsity, you can always email Chris at hailvarsity.com. Find us on Twitter and do so at Schmidt_radio, at Herbel Essence.
Turn the phone line down.
And Justice Rhody. Yes.
There we go.
There we go. Let's see if take two happens with Evan Bland here on the show. There we go.
Hey, guys.
Hey, how we doing? There's Evan. We said so many nice things about you, and you didn't hear any of them, man.
I'll just have to take your word for it.
That sounds skeptical. All right. Well, let's talk skeptics. You got Nebraska fans, and I don't know the percentage of confidence versus fear on Saturday, Evan, but I know one guy that isn't worried. He's going to go out there and do his things, Dana Holgorsen. That was pretty refreshing to hear and see yesterday.
It was. That was a whole bunch of straight talk we got from Dana Holgorsen over about 15 minutes or so. Like, the big takeaway that I had from that was we knew that Nebraska and Matt Rule wanted to shake things up in terms of the offense and what they could fix. And I think what we were reminded of, and this shouldn't be a surprise necessarily to anybody who's followed Dana Holgorsen's career, but we were reminded that he's able to shake things up just on the strength of who he is, and being able to speak bluntly to a position coach at halftime and saying, hey, why aren't your running backs running through the holes that are out there on the field, or talking to the receivers about why, using pretty colorful language, why aren't you guys blocking on the perimeter? Like, you're not going to get targets if that doesn't change. You have Dylan Raiola saying he's got a point blank way of speaking. And so, like, these aren't issues, I don't think, that are new to Nebraska's staff or their players, but sometimes when you're spoken to or communicated with in a certain way like that, I think it can kind of, wake you up a little bit. You see things or hear things maybe from a different perspective. And so, I think there's going to be a lot of value in maybe just the personality of Dana Holgorsen as much as the experience as a play caller, what he's done as a head coach, the perspective he's going to bring to the operation. And there's just a lot of, I was really fascinated by his path back to Lincoln, just in terms of how he's having to cram and learn about the current personnel and cram for the opponents simultaneously. So just very much a wild card in terms of what could turn things in Nebraska's favor potentially for these last two games. I think we'll be curious to see which young guy maybe comes out there with a bigger role than we've had. That was a tease that Holgorsen put out there in his press conference. So it should make any remaining availabilities he has with Nebraska appointment listening, and maybe that'll refresh some of what the offense is doing too.
Evan Bland with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Evan, that value of personality, for whatever reason, you need a harder edge, right? And you've gotten some response on the perimeter with blocking. You've gotten some response, specifically that second drive of the third quarter in the run game. And if you're Matt Rule, you had to go bring in a no-nonsense personality. Threats, no. They're promises. You're not going to play if you don't do X, Y, and Z. And do you feel like maybe some of that was missing? And I'm not saying that the players did not or don't respect their position coaches, but you saw the same problem time and time and time again, and you saw a much better effort and execution in 10 days of Dana.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. I mean, a lot of the offensive assistants are younger guys earlier in their career. That's true at the running back spot. That's true at the receiver spot. That's true at the offensive line spot. You have a lot of guys who are still learning and who maybe owe parts of their career to Matt Rule. And so the contrast with Holgorsen is this is a guy who's been a head coach in the Big 12 and who's been the face of a program for a long time, who's faced pressure games. And so, like, he's not coming in to Nebraska auditioning for 2025. Like, you know, Matt Rule's already made it clear he'd like Holgorsen to be back next year. This is a situation where this is someone who has experience, who has the personality, who, quite honestly, has nothing to lose by coming out and speaking his mind as plainly as he can. I mean, Matt Rule, I thought his thoughts about just the contrast in his own style with Holgorsen was interesting. You know, they wanted somebody in there who was a little bit different, who could, push the staff collectively maybe out of its comfort zone a little bit. And, yeah, I mean, I think it's also true that in modern college athletics, like, coaches speak to players a certain way, and there's a certain level of, diplomacy maybe sometimes that goes into it, especially this time of year when the portal's going to open in a few weeks, and all of that I think plays into it. So it's refreshing, I think, in the sense that this move and what Holgorsen's done is entirely about the next two games, and whatever consequences or impact comes after that remains to be seen. But right now, the total focus is on finding a way to beat Wisconsin, finding a way to beat Iowa, and man, what a difference finishing 5-7 and 7-5 would be for the outlook of how Nebraska does this season.
It's Evan Bland with us here from the Omaha World Herald talking Nebraska. Dana Holgorsen, he met with the media for the first time yesterday. And Evan, one of the things that is also important with Dana, not only is it the bluntness, calling it as he sees it, but it's also, simply put, a fresh set of eyes on the personnel that you have out there. Have the personnel been right? Are there any young guys that have flown under the radar? Dana brought one up yesterday saying there's a guy that he thinks is going to help out on Saturday. Some names have been floated out around there. You have any thoughts on who the young guy who we might see on Saturday could be?
Yeah, it's a fun thought. You kind of go through position by position. I don't know that it would be at tight end. I guess it could be at running back if maybe he was taken by Quentin Ives or something like that. I still think maybe the most likely spot is receiver. And it could be, a number of different guys. It could be Keelan Smith. It could be Carter Nelson, maybe in line for a bigger usage. It could be, Quinn Clark is somebody who's traveled and who's been out there. So, I think that'll be fascinating to see. And we saw it a little bit against USC when you see guys like Janarin Bonner have bigger games. You see Emmett Johnson have a season high in touches. So it'll be fascinating. The more that Holgorsen learns the personnel, the more that he, attends practice and pores over practice film and game film. It's just going to be interesting to see how he assesses talent, how that might be different from how Nebraska coaches have done that so far. And, another example of his bluntness, I think came in his press conference when he said it happens to all assistants, where you kind of get tunnel vision a little bit with the guys that you have out there, and it's hard for other players to make a move. So this was a chance, really, the last couple of weeks for some of those younger guys to audition, to maybe show off how they have improved since fall camp. And so my guess is that maybe that move will come at the receiver spot, but it's going to be fun to see how that plays out Saturday.
Evan Bland with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. Evan, you had Bullock's comments yesterday as well about two different coverages on some of the busts with Nebraska. You've got guys that have played 1 million years of college football in the secondary. And, how can that happen? And, you're going into game 11. Do you think things finally get on the same page? And they've been on the same page at times, but anytime Nebraska's played a good quarterback and an offense that's had a run game, it's been a long day for the defense. Do you think things will settle down with Tony White and Coach Butler? At least that, Tony's the boss, but you got the secondary doing something wrong with experienced players. That's not supposed to be happening.
Yeah, it's not. And Deshaun Singleton, the safety, had a decent answer to that. Said it was just miscommunication on a couple of those where the play comes in on the head mic to whomever's wearing the green dot, and then it just didn't get signaled. Maybe a guy was looking in a different direction when that got communicated in to the rest of the defense. So, I don't get the sense that that's happened a ton this year, but I think at the larger sense, the defense has been maybe a little bit more frustratingly erratic than it was certainly a season ago. I mean, you've had those moments where they're getting takeaways and you can tell that it's an older veteran group, and then you have these moments where, like on Saturday, the secondary just didn't play very well. There were some broken plays that USC was able to convert. There were multiple moments where the ball, literally went through the hands of a defensive back. And so, it's an interesting situation because Nebraska, I think, rarely defensively to this point has put together a full game. We've seen some pretty good halves. We've seen some pretty good quarters. But it's maybe what's frustrating about the team in general is that, like, when they're playing well, you can tell that they can hang with anybody. I mean, we saw them hang with Ohio State. That win over Colorado continues to look more impressive by the week, but it's just been inconsistent. And like the range of outcomes for Nebraska on a given Saturday is so wide, and you just don't know who you can trust or what parts of the team that you can trust. And so, like, it's just kind of the same story that we've had for the last month, where if Nebraska can play a complete game, yeah, they can absolutely go out and beat a Wisconsin team that has a new offensive coordinator and is asking questions. They can absolutely beat an Iowa team that's had injuries at quarterback and has had a disappointing season. But at the same time, they're not nearly good enough to beat those teams if they're hurting themselves, if they're struggling to kind of find what works for them. So, it's kind of the same narrative that we've had. If Nebraska can avoid beating itself, then it's going to end a long streak and go to a bowl game, and there's going to be positive momentum. And if they don't, then we're going to be asking these questions here for quite a while still.
There'll be no whiskey left for the Real Red Reaction show. With a win, it'll all be drank, and people will be smiling and safe, right? Uber home.
Bringing champagne to the studio again, just in case.
Oh, are you? Look at you. Evan, we'll see you on Saturday, but always love your insight. Thank you for the time today.
Appreciate you guys. See ya.
There he is, Evan Bland with us here on Hail Varsity. Like and subscribe, Hail Varsity YouTube channel.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity. Time for a Jock Doc Wednesday. Nebraska Orthopedic Center, Dr. Brandon Seifert with us. Dr. Brandon, how we doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Chris. How are you guys doing?
We're good. We're part of the Zach Taylor fan club here. Not that we all wear orange and black all the time, but we like what Zach's doing. Cincinnati's having a tough year, and let's talk about DJ Turner, placed on IR yesterday after he broke his clavicle in that tough Sunday loss to the Chargers. Let's talk about a broken clavicle, and Turner been playing some good ball for Cincy.
Yeah, absolutely. So not something we've talked a lot about on the show. Clavicle fractures at that kind of higher level, collegiate level, professional level. I honestly don't see them all that often. I do tend to see them, quite frequently on like the high school level, and especially kind of our lower kid, junior high level, we'll see them more. But just talking anatomically about, what is the clavicle, kind of common term, collarbone. Basically, it sits kind of above the shoulder, runs from your shoulder over to kind of the chest, the sternum, which is that central part of your chest wall. And that's essentially what the clavicle is. Obviously, a lot of trauma goes through that area. Think about all the contact with football. And typically with these, we tend to see more clavicle fractures, more with kind of that falling down mechanism, kind of fall on that kind of affected side, fall on that side. That usually is what breaks the clavicle. It's actually quite rare to have it more be a direct trauma where, like, say somebody takes a football helmet, runs it right into the clavicle. I see that less than I do more just the act of falling on it's usually enough to break it.
When we talk about this injury, that part of the body, Dr. Brandon, how sturdy or sensitive is it when it comes to breakage and injury?
It's pretty sore. The first kind of break when you do it, it's obviously really sore, quite painful. Obviously painful enough that usually knocks you out of the game that you're playing in. Tends to be quite a bit of swelling in the area. Probably the hardest part with these, though, is it's so superficial, and yet there's a lot of kind of motion that occurs here just with any type of shoulder motion. That clavicle is going to move around, the collarbone is going to move around some. And that's the part that can be almost exquisitely painful, also a little bit unnerving as you're hearing those bones kind of move against one another, track a little bit. We call it crepitus. You'll notice that more so with this than, say, other types of fractures that are out there that we treat, typically non-operatively.
It's Dr. Brandon Seifert with us here, a Jock Doc Wednesday, talking the fractured collarbone for Bengals defensive back D.J. Turner, placed on injured reserve. Bengals coach Zach Taylor and former Husker saying he's not 100% sure if he's done for the year. It's something they got to let sit and heal. Dr. Brandon, what determines the timetable on this, whether surgery is going to be required, whether it's going to be a season ender, whether it's not going to be a season ender? Well, what are the factors here that you're watching for to determine what the timetable is going to be for his recovery?
Sure, and so obviously this is based on what things look like on imaging. So, for example, X-rays, these are typically things you don't need an MRI for. But on X-ray, kind of those telltale signs that kind of kicks you into that area of, hey, this thing needs surgery. Most importantly is when they really shorten. And so typically when these break, one side will kind of slide up over the top of the other, and then it'll really shorten up. And if that shortens up, a certain number, then that's, kind of an automatic, let's go do surgery, because they do better if you shorten a certain amount, and they do better if you fix them surgically. These are tough if they are essentially non-displaced or minimally displaced. You can let those heal, and those actually do really quite well. So if there's no significant shortening, or basically less than 2.5 to 3 centimeters, you can leave these alone, let it heal, and they typically do quite well, especially at that level, and if the growth plates are closed. There's some specific variants of this that also, essentially require surgeries because they don't heal very well. We call them distal clavicle fractures, and that would be at the very end of that collarbone as it gets close to the shoulder. Those in that region just don't have an awesome blood supply. It's hard to kind of immobilize that region, and those tend to not heal well. And so we're quite a bit more aggressive in terms of fixing those surgically, and they do much better. There's a couple of variants here where you may fracture the clavicle and also kind of stretch the ligaments where that clavicle attaches onto a smaller bone below it called the coracoid, and that's what would control, like if somebody had like a shoulder separation where you see the clavicle really popped up, like the classic quarterback shoulder separation. That's another one that might prompt you to fix both clavicle as well as the ligamentous issue. So those are kind of some special scenarios. As we're reading this about this gentleman, they're talking about kind of a watch and see, take some X-rays and see what this is going to do, and that's very reasonable. So those clavicle fractures that are within those kind of zones that are acceptable in terms of healing, you may sit on this for a week or two. He'll have X-rays kind of every week just to follow this. If it stays in acceptable position and he starts to demonstrate some good bone formation in the area, you can watch these, follow these along, and just treat them what we call in a closed or non-operative fashion. And then if you start asking that question, well, if you treat it in a closed fashion non-operatively, when can somebody like that go back to playing contact sports? It's a bit variable. It depends on how much bone is formed, how they feel, how quickly can you start some aggressive rehab. But I would probably put that timetable somewhere between 6 or 8 weeks is probably still fairly aggressive. Trying to put these people back at 4 weeks is probably a bit too risky.
Yeah, Dr. Bray, whenever you think about the broken collarbone, a guy that always comes to mind for me is Aaron Rodgers. Back in 2013, he broke the left collarbone. That kept him out of 7 starts, did not require surgery. But then you compare that to 2017 when he broke his right collarbone. He needed 13 screws, and he missed the rest of the season. Part of the reason why was because that was his throwing shoulder. Whenever you think about the contact nature of football, how much do you worry about re-injury with the collarbone in the defensive back spot whenever you're a guy that not only do you have your hands above your head a lot, not only are you making contact with your arms extended, but you also have to go in and lay the wood on some 220, 230-pound running
Some
backs.
cornerbacks.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it's a great point. So I look at that from two perspectives. So one, if you have enough time to let them heal. So let's say you're treating somebody non-operatively and you're kind of towards the end of the season and you're like, well, there's no way you're going to have enough time to get back. Then great. Those folks, they're going to go on to heal. They're going to have plenty of time to heal. And I really don't have any concerns with them going back and playing and having an increased risk of fracture to the area because they're going to have plenty of time to get better and heal, and their risk should essentially be about the same as anybody else's going forward. forward, as long as radiographically, obviously, it's looking good. On the flip side, when you have these scenarios where it happens early season, there's a potential to get back in play, then obviously that kind of rushed timetable starts to come into play, and you might get them back a little sooner than maybe that bone is fully solidified. They feel good. It looks pretty good, but maybe it's not fully, kind of remodeled like it should be. And then they probably have an increased risk of, refracturing through that area. Okay. And so in this scenario, that potentially is what's going to be the case. They're going to want to try to get him back as soon as they can. And so he won't probably have that full healing time, if you will. And he probably is at a little increased risk of an issue going forward until he gets to the end of the season and then can fully rest it.
Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. DJ Turner, our topic. About 30 seconds. Dr. Brandon, is this one of the more painful injuries football players have to deal with?
Yeah, it's pretty painful. The first day or two of these are really sore. That's a tough one, kind of comparing those things across the spectrum. But it is definitely one of those that's pretty sore. Again, that sensation of feeling those kind of bones rub against one another that first couple of days is not pleasant. And so that's probably the biggest issue that most of the patients do. But in the end, the patients do super well with these. They heal quickly. They progress well. And I really just don't see any big long-term issues unless you leave one really short and you don't fix it. Then they can have some issues long-term.
Dr. Brandon will get caught up again next week. Always appreciate the insight. Thanks for the time today.
All right, fellas. Take care.
Good to spend time with Dr. Brandon. We'll wind down a Wednesday with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on a Wednesday, it's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and Justice Rhody. Hail Varsity YouTube, like and subscribe. Take us with on the podcast. Search Hail Varsity Radio. Give us a rating. Reminder to buckle up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Big thanks to Barry Alvarez, Coach McBride, Mike Babcock, and, of course, Evan Bland. Tomorrow, Damon Benning with us. We'll say hi to Coach Gary Barnett, Danny Burke, Brandon Vogel. Come find us at the Single Barrel to get your Thursday college football NFL weekend kicked off. A lot to talk about with the playoff committee, with their selection or choices right now. Not a lot of movement here, but there's still this ongoing argument with Indiana. Are they a nuisance or are they Cinderella? Let's hear from the Pirate. God bless him. Mike Leach, we miss you. And we want to hear about committees because, well, they screw things up.
Is the mind-numbingly short-sighted notion that 4 teams for a playoff, somehow establishes something, and that's a very clever approach. I mean, that's such a brilliant approach. That's why everybody does it that way. I mean, nobody does it that way. I mean, if we were so smart, wouldn't all the other sports say, I know what, let's have a committee? Because why not? Because, we're American. We love committees. Let's get us a committee. Well, who should be on the committee? Well, I don't know. This guy's a good guy. Let's have him on the committee. Well, I mean, there's people on the committee that don't even have remote associations with football, nor have they at any level other than being a fan. But you know what? Let's have them on a committee. Why not? And then, I mean, it'd be fun. We'd go to that resort. We could talk. We could hang out at dinner. And then we'll decide which 4 teams should go. Because you know why? We don't need to solve this on the field. Because we're the ones that know. And then, so, I mean, if we're going to do it that way, we should just ask them at the beginning of the season, just go ahead and you guys vote on it, figure out 1, 2, 3, and 4, and why even have the games? To me, I mean, it's not a playoff. There's nothing playoff about it. And this is even if we make it. Even if we make it, my thoughts don't change. I mean, how can you call it a playoff when there's 4 teams? Conference champions don't even necessarily make the playoffs because you know why? Because the committee knew better.
Gotta love the Pirate. Now it's 12. I wonder how the committee will react if Texas gets shaken up by Kentucky or loses to A&M, or dare I say Florida stays hot with Ole Miss visiting.
I gave you that fun fact, Schmidt, during the commercial break. This game that Kentucky is playing against Texas is actually the furthest west they have ever played a football game.
I don't think Indiana has to stay perfect, but they can't get
11-1 gets them in. If it's a loss to Ohio State and it's competitive.
Yeah, BYU's at Arizona State this weekend. I mean, are they working on a third? Well, could have been a third straight loss. You have Penn State's at Minnesota. I mean, do you have some shakeup this weekend is my question. I mean, there's some do or die. I mean, does USC stay hot, beat UCLA, and then ruin Notre Dame's party? I don't think so. But that wouldn't shock me to see someone else go down. Colorado, danger zone down in the Arrowhead with KU.
One thing I will say here, we do not need to have a college football playoff ranking release every single week.
It's been kind of fun to chat about. Talk tomorrow at 4. See you at the Single Barrel.